Good. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our panel, our Consulting 101 panel, sponsored by the Graduate Business Career Center at the Carlson School of Management. We are joined today by some fantastic alum and friends of Carlson from our Working Professional Part-Time MBA program, who have agreed to share their time with us today over the lunch hour and talk a little bit about their own journey into consulting, what it's really like, so we can get the scoop, and to provide you with some insight about how to set yourself up to be a competitive candidate should you choose to go into the consulting space. I know joining us today we have lots of participants from our part-time and online and full-time MBA programs here at Carlson, so I welcome you wherever you are, and hoping you're all safe and healthy and well. I am Brigette with the career coaching staff at Carlson, and you didn't come on here to hear from me. So I know you came on here to hear from our panelists. So I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves and each share, a minute or two just about their own background. I have a couple of questions just to get us started. And then Julie Bartels is going to be monitoring the chat. And so please feel free to send some questions to Julie, and then she will help feed those into us so that we can make sure everybody here is going to have a chance to get the best they can out of this webinar. And this will be recorded, and we will be sharing it with folks. So in case you get interrupted or need to step away for a second, or you just have so much fun today that you want to listen to it again, which I know that will be the case, we'll make sure to get that out to you. So I'm going to start with Tim Kosanke, who is with Slalom, and ask Tim to just introduce yourself. And tell us a little bit, Tim, about maybe your career history so far, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay, hi everyone, I'm Tim Kosanke. So I guess I really started my career as an HVAC or a controls engineer at an HVAC company. And then from there, I moved to a control panel manufacturer as a electrical and computer engineer. And then that's, while I was there, I started my MBA at Carlson. And then once graduated, I moved on to work as a more technical consultant for Slalom. So yeah, in terms of, I guess, why I wanted to get an MBA as well, is like I knew I wanted to understand the business and management side more than just the engineering. And I knew that understanding that business and management side would give me a more holistic view of organizations and better understand how to work with them.
Great, thank you so much, Tim. And then Abe Srivastava from joining us from the Bahamas, an undisclosed island location. Love to have you tell us next a little bit about you and how you got into consulting.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Bridget. And hey, everyone. Happy Friday to all. So my name is Abe. My background is in computer science. I did my undergrad from U of M as well. And I got into software development for a few years after finishing up my degree. And I realized after about 2 or 3 years that I really wanted to progress more. I wanted to stay within tech. I wanted to progress more on the management side and understand the business, interface with clients more. And that's what propelled me to get an MBA. And while in MBA, I had the opportunity to attend several sessions like this, like you are right now. And during those events, I got pulled towards consulting more and more, and that's how I found my calling, so to speak, and that's where I am today. I work at Deloitte. I work within the technology group within Deloitte, and specifically focus a lot on mergers and acquisitions. And my industry focus is private equity, so a lot of transactions, buy side, sell side, in the private equity space. That's where I spend most of my time.
Awesome, thanks so much, Abe. And I appreciate the background that you've chosen. I think we all appreciate that right now. Oh, that's awesome. Next, I'd like to invite Rachel Whitcomb with BCG to share a little bit about her history and what she's up to now.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rachel with BCG. My undergrad was actually in English literature and composition. I had a variety of administrative operations focused roles. Was working at the University of Minnesota when I decided to go get my MBA. I knew that I saw all these roles around me that had more impact, more strategy, tougher problems to solve, and I needed a way to leapfrog into those. So started the MBA program and got interested in consulting actually at this panel. I don't know what it was, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was. I had never heard of it when I started my MBA, and so this is what sparked it for me. And then did the on-campus recruiting process is how I ended up at BCG. Been here for about a year and a half. BCG has a generalist model when you start out, so I've done a variety of types of projects in specialty retail, and then also working with the federal government across a couple different functions. You're on mute, Bridget.
Oh, Bridget, you're on mute.
I think you're on mute. There you go.
Okay, got it. Sorry. So next up, thank you, Rachel, for the help. Next up, I'd like to welcome Mitch Johnson, who's with Grant Thornton, to share a little bit about his journey as well.
Hey everyone, Mitch Johnson, like Rich said, from Grant Thornton, specifically in our growth and transformation strategy area. I started my undergrad at St. Thomas, got 2 different business degrees in marketing operations. Went to Security and Financial in downtown St. Paul and worked in their management development program for about a year, where I got exposure to a lot of different areas within the company, doing kind of mini consulting type projects. After that, I went into more kind of operations roles, doing some project management, worked a little bit in underwriting, and through that process, I realized I wanted to kind of go back to those project-based roles, which kind of fueled me to go back, get my MBA, and really with a goal towards getting a consulting job out of MBA. So that's really what got me to where I am today, and I am very happy at GT working on projects kind of around customer experience in the financial services industry.
Great, thank you, thank you. And last but of course not least, Mr. Adam Meyer, who is joining us from 12 Consulting.
Thank you, Bridget. Thank you everyone for spending your lunch hour with us. So like Bridget said, I'm Adam Meyer from 12 Consulting. I'm a managing consultant here. My background, I have an undergrad in finance, and I had graduated in 2008. So conveniently enough, I can sympathize with many of you. My background worked in med device companies in various finance, marketing roles, working in analytics, and then really grew into focusing sales performance management. So anything related to sales compensation strategy, how you set quotas for your salespeople, and was working there while I got my MBA at Carlson, and just made the transition to 12 Consulting, which is a technology consulting firm that we focus on helping companies with the digital transformation of how do they plan better and encapsulate their data to be able to make better decisions. So I work primarily with oil and gas companies, hospitality, telecom companies. So I've had quite the last few weeks, to say the least.
Fair, that's fair. And then we may have one more panelist joining us, Luca Signorelli, who is with Alex Partners and is also an alum of Carlson. It will surprise none of our panelists that Luca got pulled in on a last minute client call. So he may be able to join us again. And so folks, hopefully we'll get a chance to chat with him. So next I would just like to open it up to the panelists to kind of share with us a little bit about how you knew consulting was right for you, because taking what Adam just said about, working in terms of, digital transformation, consulting, I'm going to guess that when Adam was 5 and somebody asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up, he didn't say, oh, I want to be a digital transformation strategist and consultant. Probably not what we think of. So how did you kind of know this was right for you? And, any tips for the audience about how they too can figure out if consulting is a right fit for them? Adam.
Oh no, my headphones just died. Hold on, so am I.
Oh my goodness. It's good thing you're a technology consultant.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so for me, when I worked at my old job, it was a lot of routine things that we would have the same processes. Every quarter we do this, every month we do this process, and every year. And they were fun problems. They were challenging problems, but I got kind of sick of we would do the same thing every year, and it was just sort of the repeatable aspect of it. And I wanted something that was more challenging, and like those painful, challenging problems, that's what I really enjoyed as part of my job. And so I was looking for something to fulfill that outlet, and having that sense of pride of working within ambiguity. And so that's really what drove me to want to, get into consulting, and how I knew when I got here that it would be a really good fit, because that's a lot of, what we work on is we get a problem we know nothing about, or we have very little experience, and you need to adapt and learn very quickly.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Tim.
Yeah, sure. So very similar to Rachel, I initially didn't consider consulting at all until I heard about it really through the MBA program and in one of these panels as well. But really, the more and more I heard of it, I knew like it was just going to fit my personality really well. I'm definitely not very similar to Adam. I'm someone that doesn't like to sit still for long. I feel like I always really need to be challenged, and learning something new or working on a new project is really what motivates me to keep doing well, keep growing as a person. So that's how I knew consulting was really going to be a good fit for me ultimately.
Great. And Abe.
So for me, in addition to being in the panel type forums and learning about consulting from alums of Carlson, in parallel, I had the opportunity to be on the receiving end of consulting, where my company that had acquired another company, they had hired a consulting firm to come in and do the integration work for us. So I worked pretty closely with the consulting team at the time. I think it was in 2016 now. And just watching them work, the style of work that they have, the level of rigor they have in their problem solving, and the assumption-based approach to problem solving, the data-driven based approach, all of that really resonated with me at the time. And, of course, at that time, I was just a simple developer, sitting in my corner, punching away code. And seeing that in action was really what drove me to view consulting as a viable career choice, and in fact sparked my interest, which of course then got augmented with the panel and forums that I attended at Carlson.
That's awesome. Thank you. Well, kind of building on that. So, thank you for folks for sharing how you got into this space, what drew you to the space. And I'd love to ask folks maybe like Mitch, Rachel, to share what have been really, a favorite project you've had a chance to work on, or something that was interesting or engaging, and tell us a little bit about that, just so we can get a snapshot kind of into, I know a day in the life is a hard thing to get a snapshot on, but perhaps a project in the life of a consultant. So Rachel or Mitch, do either of you have projects you'd like to share? Looks like Rachel might.
I can start. So a project I worked on, it was the second project I worked on after I started at BCG, was with a specialty retail company. And it's something we call CPI, which is category profitability improvement. So it's looking at a specific category. We actually pick a collection of categories, and you get an opportunity as a consultant to sort of own that category and the relationship with the category manager on the client side. And you're looking for quick margin wins. So you get an opportunity to have, from a consultant perspective, you have a client relationship, and you also have this analytical component, a lot of quant opportunity there. And just sort of a fun way of looking for opportunities, quick things they can do that are actually like very tactical and that are implemented in a short time span, so like 6 months, and have a real monetary impact on the business. So helping them form their vendor negotiations is the main part of what you're doing there. So kind of just fun, like variety in this very sort of classic way of engaging with someone in the business that's having this immediate impact.
And Rachel, I have to ask, how in the world do you even know how to do that stuff?
So at BCG, at most consulting firms, are sort of, we call it the apprenticeship model. So you're on a team where you're managed by someone, and then you also have your partners, we call them MDPs, so managing directors and partners at BCG, who have experience with this. So in my case, the CPI, the managing partner on the case has had like 20, he's the godfather of CPI. 20 years experience in this. And so he can help direct, like, this is what we've seen at other clients. And there's to some extent a playbook or a roadmap of how we've approached this with other clients in the past. But then you have room as a consultant to say, here's what's special and different about this situation with this client specifically that I'm seeing in the information based on what's happening at this time in the economy in the world. When this particular project was going on, the tariffs with China were just being implemented. And so we did a lot of work about how do we think this is going to potentially impact in the future. So there's an element of like a tested playbook, but also an element of being able to bring in new insights.
Thank you for sharing that. And a part of the reason I asked that question, and Mitch, I'm going to ask you the same thing, is because I know that that's a question that people will say to me. They'll say, if I'm not a subject matter expert on something, how am I going to know how to do these things? So it's great to hear that about that apprenticeship model. And so, Mitch, do you have a project or a project in the life of a consultant you'd like to share with us today?
Yeah. So I think my favorite project was actually the first project that I was on. Kind of very similar structure that Rachel was talking about. I was low man on the totem pole. There was a lot of support around me that kind of brought in, similar approaches to previous projects that we had completed. But basically, this project was for a mid-sized benefits administrator. So basically, they do outsourcing for call center operations or processing of things like life insurance benefits. They actually process the paper and then pay out the claims for those. So basically, this company was extremely tight. Their operations were really in really good order, and also they had kind of a singular and well communicated and understood vision across the entire company. So when we came in, we're like, what's the problem here? But they kind of want to take that one step further, and what they called it is they wanted to skew every single activity that they did. So it was kind of a cross between activity-based costing and then kind of operating model design. So they wanted to remove all silos, cross-train everyone, and then understand exactly how long every single task took, and then what the price of that task was for the company, so they could do completely modular pricing and product offers to their clients. So we actually came in and developed the hierarchy for how do you systematically incorporate those different how do you build a product from many processes. So there were many hours in a room with me and then multiple people above me, kind of going at this mind-bending problem of what is a process. So you had to really break it down, distill it, and get really clear on the definition of that, so you could build it up to, what is that macro level product that you'd actually offer to a client, and what does it cost, and how do you price that out?
And you learned that through the playbook of the organization, kind of learning how to do that, how to approach it.
So we hadn't really we hadn't seen that exact problem. Obviously, it was pretty unique to this client, but we kind of mixed a couple of different approaches that we'd taken previously. So one of them is more like just traditional SKU management in more of a manufacturing sense, and then also brought together more of our operating model design lens that we have in our strategy practice, and kind of merged both of those together in order to come up with a solution.
Cool, great. Well, and kind of playing on this, how to be a good consultant. I would love if you all, could maybe not everyone, whoever chooses and wants to share. If there were courses or experiential learning opportunities, experience things that you did in your academic experience that really helped you to be prepared to go into the consulting space, or some of those skills that you draw on. I mean, we're just looking for verification that education is helpful, which we know it is. But I know students are always curious, what classes to take. And that's a question I get as a career coach. So love to hear from anyone who wants to share maybe classes or experiences that you engaged in while at Carlson that have been helpful to you as a consultant. Tim.
So I know for me, as I really enjoyed the strategic management courses, just any of those in there, I really found those useful because it made me have to think at a higher level than what I usually am doing on a day-to-day basis. So it really broadened my view, I guess, and also introduced some change management practices that are very helpful when it comes to consulting, because a lot of the times you're going in there and you're kind of either upending a process that's really there or changing a lot of people's day-to-day activities. So trying to do that with a nicely is difficult sometimes. So that really helped. And as funny as it sounds, I also really think the strategies and skills for managerial presentations course was very useful. I think that it really taught me how to make succinct, impactful presentations that the people that in those executive leader positions typically find most useful. They're really looking for you to drill down into those things and not have too much flow. So that was very helpful.
Good, thank you. Good share, thanks. Adam, how about you? What courses or experiences were helpful?
Yeah, I think I would agree with Tim. I think just building off of what he said in the comment of like, you're coming in to help solve a problem, and some people that might have been their idea that you're critiquing, and so you have to tell them they're wrong without sounding like an asshole, and you have to like, be polite, right? That's the truth of it too. So
Yeah.
persuasion and influence, I think, was a really like helpful class when you think about how you need to convey the message to people or try to get things done in a diplomatic manner when you may not have that authority over them to tell them what they need to do or what decisions they need to make. I think classes along those lines were very helpful. And then obviously what Tim said too, of anything, I enjoyed corporate strategy where you're thinking about, from that broader holistic perspective of like, maybe there's a microcosm you're talking about, but you need to like think more broadly of how this is going to fit into what the direction of the company is moving towards.
Good point, good point. And Abe.
Yeah, I think building off of that, I mean, part of the power of being able to persuade someone is to show the analysis and data behind it. And I think the one course that really helped me refine that skill was financial modeling. I think I took both the beginning and the advanced version, and I think that has come a long way for me to apply that to my job, because almost every day you're doing some sort of assumptions-based decision making, which involves modeling of some sort. Even back of the napkin or back of the hand or calculations, you can't simply throw numbers out there that clients tend to catch on to, and then they'll hold you accountable to it. So you need to have some sort of model behind whatever you speak, however you speak it, and having a framework and a structure around doing that really helps drive the point home that you're trying to make. And that class really helped me do that. And simple Excel skills as well. I had no Excel skills at the time, so learning that was extremely helpful, and I use it almost every day in my job today. So direct benefit.
That's a great plug to beef up those Excel skills. And then thank you. So I want to kind of pivot over to, wondering a little bit about, how you get into getting into actual consulting. So as we're hearing about some of, good classes to take, and there's myths, and legends out there about consulting that, you have to have the highest GMAT ever, and you have to be able to do all the things. What are your tips in terms of like, what are good networking strategies or, pathways to just help you move into that consulting space? Do I have to have a 780 GMAT score? Rachel.
Yeah, so I can speak from the BCG perspective about kind of the things that we look for in candidates. So the GMAT score, there is no magic GMAT score that you need to get over, but it is one of the criteria that we look at, sort of the entire academic profile, so GMAT and GPA. If you have a strong GMAT, so like 700 up, that's kind of just automatically checks the box. If it's below that, then it becomes more of a question of what else is in your profile. And so looking at academic strength, if it's not demonstrated in the GMAT, or there are other ways that you're showing it in your materials. And then looking for leadership qualities, and looking for, to the extent that you can glean this from someone's resume, like passion and curiosity. So I think this kind of strays away a little bit, but one of the things that I think is a hallmark among all of the consultants I know is that people have a real curiosity and a thirst to learn and a desire to grow and get better. And that's something that drives success in this job and that we look for, and you can demonstrate that in a variety of ways, whether it's in your coursework or in extracurriculars, you know, you're volunteering or you're leading some clubs. Those are types of things that we would also look for.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you.
And then networking, on the networking piece, like networking can be super important. And I think it's a good thing to do for yourself as much as it's remember that it's not only about trying to sell yourself to the company, but really it's a vetting process for you to say, is this a company I want to work for? Is this a good fit for me? So you should be using that time to find out what the experience is like and find out what the company culture is like, as much as you're trying to pitch yourself as someone that the company would want to hire.
Great. Thank you. Other folks. Yeah, Mitch.
Yeah, just to kind of echo the networking piece, it's really easy to say, you know, I'm going to start that on X date, but when the date you when you decide to start networking, you're already 3 weeks out from your first networking interview. And if you only schedule a couple of networking interviews, then you're 3 weeks out for your next set of networking interviews. So it's kind of an iterative and like constant process. You need to start building a list of the different types of companies that you want to be meeting with, find people at those companies that you want to be meeting with, and then start, you know, scheduling them every single week for 3 weeks out. And then you have like this rolling calendar of networking meetings that you have. And Rachel made a great point about, you know, those meetings will help you understand the nuances that exist between these different consultancies, because they're definitely different. And there are different cultures at each company. I think the best way to understand the company culture is to have a meeting with not just one person from that company, but a couple different people.
Great. So definitely that trust but verify mentality when it comes to networking. Fantastic. I'm going to take a beat here, and I want to I want to invite Luca Signorelli with Alex Partners to take a minute and introduce yourself. We know, Luca, that you have been off saving the world and working on a client project right now. So we'd just love to have you share a little bit, as our panelists have already, about kind of your professional past and what got you into consulting.
Sure. I'll keep it brief since I'm seeing some other questions popping in, but hi everyone. Sorry I was late. As Julie can attest to, I jumped on this call right at noon and immediately had something pop up as an invite for a call with a bunch of lawyers and bankers. So had to jump off and go handle that, which is such as life in consulting. But I've been with Alex Partners for about 3 years now, consulting. Joined immediately after graduating from Carlson. And before that, I'd spent a number of years at Target. I work pretty much exclusively with retailers and helping them with operational improvements and you know, financial improvements. And if they want to look at trying to become more efficient or do revenue growth, we do all sorts of work in those areas. And yeah, I think that covers most of the background on me in a short time.
Great, thank you. And at this point, I really do want to encourage folks to submit questions in as we move into the last 15 minutes of our time together. You know, we'll let our panelists answer some of your questions. But I do want to just circle back in terms of if there's any last thoughts from the panel about just ways to you know, move into that consulting space when it comes to networking, or what your organizations look for in terms of strong candidates would be really helpful, so that our listeners and participants can get a sense of how they may want to differentiate themselves.
I can speak from the Alex Partners perspective. If our firm hires a lot of really smart people, as do all consulting firms, but we pride ourselves on a lot of industry background. And so if you have significant experience in a functional area, that's usually kind of what we're looking for, versus you'll see, and that's very intentional, by the way. Other consulting firms will say, come on and be a generalist, come figure out what you want to do, what spaces you want to work in. Whereas we kind of come from the perspective of take the industry that you know the best and go work on those projects. If you don't like it, there's ways to adjust once you're within the firm, but that's usually what we look for in terms of the recruiting process.
Great, good perspective. Thank you for sharing that. So I gotta say, you guys, the chat is blowing up with really exciting questions about the thing that you know everybody wants to know about consultants. How much do you really travel? Inquiring minds want to know. And we know, so this is kind of a twofold question. I'd love to have you share, any panelists share if they want. One, how much pre-COVID, to go back in our minds to that spot. How much would you travel maybe on a weekly basis or a monthly basis? And then now, how are you seeing your organization shift and adapt to this current COVID era in terms of working from home? Any insights you'd like to share on that? Tim.
So I might be the only one, but pre-COVID, I did not travel at all. So Slalom runs a local model consultancy. So we only take on projects within our market. So if I'm traveling, I might be driving across town, and that's about it. Post-COVID, still no travel. Yeah, so it's nice, and that was particularly important for me though, because at the time that I was looking for a new job, our family had just grown. I had a 3-year-old daughter and a 6-month-old son. And my wife and I really decided that the amount of travel that you kind of hear about with a consulting career just wasn't going to work for us. So yeah, Slalom really worked in that regard for us.
Great, thank you for sharing that. And I believe you are the only person on the panel today that has a local model. But Adam, I actually want you to tell us a little bit about 12's model with regards to traveling pre-COVID and current COVID.
Yeah, so similar to Tim's, but 12 Consulting is a smaller consultancy of 50 people. So obviously we don't have a local model where our two offices are Minneapolis and Chicago. And our space is digital transformation. So what better way to showcase that you can do that by working remotely? So a lot of our projects, we were already working in that capacity, and travel would typically look like when you're going to kick off the project, we would travel there, maybe mid-project check-ins and then project close, we would have travel. So I would say on average, we would, you may travel 3 weeks in a row, but then you might not travel for 2 months. So it's about, 10 to 25% of your time that we would travel. And it's really nice for work-life balance. Like similar to Tim, I have 2 small children, and I don't think I could deal with the throes of Monday through Thursday traveling. And it's just nice to know that like you can get this experience in consulting without having to maybe make that commitment that doesn't fit with your lifestyle, where you're able, you can't travel every week Monday through Thursday. And post-COVID, I have not left this office much. It's been pretty stationary for me.
Got it. Other folks, any thoughts on travel? Rachel.
I am the other end of the spectrum. So pre-COVID, typically Monday through Thursday travel. There's definitely more conversation in BCG, and I think with all of the bigger or all of the consultancies who have a full travel model around, do we need to travel all the time? And so I did have one case where we were Tuesday to Thursday at the client site. I chose to fly out on Wednesday nights because I don't like getting up super early for flights. But there was flexibility on the team of people could fly out super early Tuesday morning, or that you could fly out Monday night. So it's definitely a conversation that, again, pre-COVID was happening on our case teams around, are there ways to make this more sustainable? Can we do Monday through Wednesday? Do we need to be there every day? And now probably for the last 6 weeks or so, it's been no travel. BCG is no travel. So I have been where you see me in my house.
Yeah, thank you. And we know, none of us know what life will be like post-COVID. So I do appreciate the folks who have shared and recognizing, historically, travel is a component of that consulting space, but as all of us are adapting to new work and learning models, we will likely see some changes along there. So thank you for that. Speaking of, kind of those projects, we had a great question from one of our students around, when you get on a project, is the scope of that project already set up before you get there? Or do you work with the client to set up that scope? And love to hear some perspectives from the panel. Abe.
Yeah, so it's a mix of both. Sometimes you will get recruited by a partner for a project that has a very defined scope and a very defined budget, and you just go in, you digest the scope of the work, and you start cracking on it. Other times you're onboarded onto a project that hasn't been sold yet, and part of your job is to carry out that selling process and lock down the scope. And for me personally, I've found myself more on projects just because of the nature of the job that I do on the latter part of that equation, where I typically go onto a project not knowing what the scope is, because the client may hire us initially for doing some diligence work on a target that they're trying to acquire. And then if they like our work, they might extend us for a couple more weeks to do some day one readiness planning or some post-integration transformation work. So while you're on the project, I mean, you are of course doing your job as per the contract, but then you're also at the same time trying to sell the next phase of work, because the way M&A projects work, they're very sequential. I mean, if you start with it at the very beginning, doing some diligence planning, it's very likely that the client, if they like your work, will sign you up for the next phase, which is day one readiness planning. And then there's, working to work the integration work, or if it's a divestiture, the divestiture work. So the way you plan that is very sequential, and you just got to keep, I guess, rolling with it. And if you like your work, they'll continue to hire you for the next phase.
Great. Good thoughts there. Thanks for sharing. And Mitch.
Yeah, so for strategy type projects, which is typically what I'm involved in, while there is, a statement of work that was sold and you're brought in to execute that statement of work, strategy is sometimes nebulous. So the actual deliverables on your statement of work are not completely defined. So part of your job is to help bring some clarity to what you're actually going to be delivering, and you do that in partnership with your client. So it's understanding what are their actual goals and helping them think through the best deliverables to achieve their outcomes. And then also trying to find ways that you can bring additional value through follow-on work. I mean, I think as for your first couple of years in consulting might be more around delivery, but as you move up, it really becomes kind of a hybrid, delivery and sales role. I think that's one of the bigger learnings that I've had as I've moved up a little bit.
Great. We had a great question from the audience around partnership, and we're going to ask you to leverage your technology skills here and use the reactions function. This is for our panelists to do. And so the question is, does your organization have a path to partnership? Is there like a clear career path for partnership in your organization? And if so, can you click on the reactions tab at the bottom and do the thumbs up for us so we can see that?
Or if you don't see thumbs up, we could also do physical thumbs up.
You can use your real thumb. You can don't use a virtual thumb. Rachel, Mitch, Tim, Abe, yes, all thumbs up, and Adam is a thumbs down. So I'm gonna ask, wait, where is this? Oh, look at him. Sorry, did you do thumbs up or thumbs down?
Luca did thumbs up.
Thanks. Luca, can you tell us about what a partnership path looks like at your organization?
Sure. Excuse me. I don't have COVID. But I would say the way Alex Partners has been structured is there's actually only 4 levels within the company in terms of our employees. So we have the partners at the top, and then you have 3 levels that are below it that are in the non-partner roles. And so what's really nice about any sort of a partner track or a career track with it is that there is no up and out with us. You go at your own pace and you build to exactly the career that you want to have. And so everyone can make it to partner. What I was told day 2 of orientation was we hire people because we believe that they can build something that wasn't in the company before, and that you can provide that, and that's usually your meal ticket to becoming a partner, along with solid delivery over a number of years. But outside of that, going from the first 3 levels, you can go as fast or as slow as you want. It can be 2 years, it can be 5 years, it can be 1.5 years between levels. There's no set requirements with that. And there's a number of very senior professionals that are at what we call the director level, that's just below partner, that have been there for 10 years, just never really wanted to get into the selling side of things, but really just wanted to run projects. And that's what they do. And they're excellent at it. And there's a place for that too.
Great. And Luca, just to add on to that, if I was you know, an MBA candidate and I was interested in, you know, getting to know more about Alex Partners, would it be appropriate for me to ask you that type of question in a networking session, to just say, could you tell me a little bit about kind of what it looks like to progress through the organization?
Totally. Absolutely.
Never be afraid to ask that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, no worry about it. So I have a question I'm going to direct towards Rachel. Rachel and Abe, around preparing for your interviews with your consulting organization. Rachel, I don't want to tell you this, but there's an animal behind you. I just want to make sure you know. Okay.
It is not a deer. I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
This is
I'm
Elvis.
sorry, I didn't say a dog because I was like, there's an animal. And you are getting some great feedback from the students. So how did you prepare for the interview? What the heck is casing all about? And do I have to be worried about it?
Yeah, I can go first. So I prepared, GBCC put on a great case at the time. I think it was 3 weeks of 1 evening a week or something. I don't know what the format is now, Bridget, you can share that, but case prep workshops that were super helpful. I had never heard of a case. Turns out they're very important at BCG, at least. I had a case prep partner who is also in the part-time MBA program. And so we prepped together at least once a week. We gave each other cases. We did them in person a little bit, and then we ended up doing a lot of them by phone, which turned out to be helpful just to have reps in a different medium. Some of my interviews, first round interviews, ended up being over the phone or by WebEx, and so having practiced it before was nice. I think in today's environment in particular, we're all getting more comfortable with video chat, but practicing them that way, definitely important. Yeah, I also, GBCC at the time, I don't know if they still do, offered Victor Cheng's program, Look Over My Shoulder, which I found super helpful. He does an audio program that he gives examples that are like not so good, pretty good, really great of the same case, where he like interviews someone or interviews himself. So you can actually hear a back and forth exchange and start to hear what does a good response sound like and what does a maybe poorer response sound like and why.
Yeah, while we don't offer that program anymore, we offer a new one that's called Prep Lounge, which allows folks to do real-time case preparation 24/7 with people around the world. So it's a little more friendly to the working professional time frame and lifestyle sometimes. So if you want to be doing prep at 5 o'clock in the morning, you can. And Abe, do you have anything to add in terms of, you know, differences in terms of how you prepared or advice to folks on how to prepare for that interview for consulting?
Sure, yeah, so all the above that Rachel said, I pretty much followed the exact same approach. I had a partner in the part-time MBA program. We used to practice almost every 2 or 3 days over WebEx, I think. And then the one thing that I also did was Deloitte had a 3-hour workshop. I believe it was on a Saturday. I don't know if they still do it. I'll have to check. But they walk the candidates through the Deloitte casing, which is certainly, if you're interested in Deloitte, then certainly worth attending that. And there are some insights on the way Deloitte specifically, looks for in candidates. So things like not boiling the ocean or keeping your math simple in your head. Because the one thing you'll find in Deloitte casing, which is a bit different from other firms that I at least witnessed, was we make the math extremely easy. So the candidates don't focus on the math because that's what tends to happen sometimes. People get tunnel vision on a certain part of the problem and they forget the big picture. So that part was nice to learn and practice in that workshop that Deloitte hosted.
Right.
So.
Great. It's good to know. And I think that just reinforces a lot of what we've heard today is that while there are consistent, kind of constant pieces in that consulting space of that variety, you know, you really need to be curious and working well with others, with clients, with other team members. There are obviously variations based on the industry space that you're in for consulting, the size of your own organization, excuse me, and how far you are in your career, excuse me. And so we've gotten some great questions from our audience, but as we're already hitting 1 o'clock, because again, we could do this for days, we're not going to be able to get to all those questions. But my hope is that if folks have questions, please feel free to reach out to me, your coach. I'm always happy to answer some of those. And our panelists, I'm asking for a thumbs up if you'd be open to folks reaching out to you maybe on LinkedIn and following up if they have a question. Oh my God, look at that. Because I mean, I was going to publicly shame people if they didn't put their thumb up. And so everybody who attended today, our attendees who signed on for this workshop and our participants, we'll get a follow-up email that has everyone's LinkedIn profiles connected to it. So please leverage those networking skills, send a note to one of our panelists, and let's get that conversation going around consulting and if it's a good fit for you, right? I mean, we're all in this together. The Carlson community is really strong, so I can't thank you enough for everybody being here today and just showing, doing Carlson proud. I'm really glad that you all are out there doing great work. So at this point, I ask you all, be well, be safe, and have a great weekend, everybody. Okay, bye.
Thanks, everyone.